We take complex sources and, well, we try to boil them down to what you really need to know. And today, our mission is incredibly timely. We're looking at sources about the U.S. government shutdown that seems set to happen at midnight tonight. Things are tense. Negotiations between President Trump and Democrats in Congress, they've just completely broken down. This could be the first full shutdown in about 7 years. It's a real crisis right now, and it's about way more than just the money.
Yeah, that's the key thing for you, the listener, to get right away. I mean, technically, shutdowns are always about failing to fund the government,
Right.
right? But this one, it's fundamentally driven by these policy add-ons, these riders.
Mhm.
The fight isn't over the total budget size. It blew up over specific demands, mostly around healthcare.
Yeah.
So what we want to do in this deep dive is really break down what those demands were,
Mhm.
understand the politics that made compromise basically impossible, and lay out the immediate pretty serious consequences this whole mess has for the public.
Okay, let's get into that policy fight then. Shutdowns can seem kind of abstract, but our sources are clear this one's tied directly to health insurance for potentially millions of people. What was the specific healthcare issue that just stopped negotiators from finding any common ground?
Right. The real hangup, according to the sources, is this Democratic demand to extend certain subsidies under the Affordable Care Act, the ACA. Now, these subsidies are really vital. They lower health insurance premiums, making it affordable for a lot of people. And the crucial part, they're set to expire at the end of this year. So for Democrats, keeping these subsidies going was, well, non-negotiable. They saw this funding bill as pretty much the only chance to stop them from lapsing. Lapsing subsidies could mean millions losing coverage or facing huge premium hikes come January 1st.
Ah, okay. So that sets up a big strategic clash because the Republicans, with White House backing, were really pushing for a short-term, quote, clean spending bill. And for anyone not familiar, a clean bill basically means just funding, right? No extra policy stuff tacked on, especially not controversial things like healthcare.
Exactly, just the appropriations. The Republican thinking was, look, let's just keep the government open quickly. We can fight about the complex policy stuff later. But Democrats pushed back hard, saying Republicans were basically holding funding hostage by refusing to deal with this urgent expiring healthcare issue at the same time. It really turned the funding deadline into a kind of all-or-nothing vote on that ACA policy.
And this is where the legislative maneuvering gets really interesting, I think. The Senate actually had votes scheduled for that evening on two totally different plans. And spoiler alert, neither really had a chance of passing. Both needed 60 votes to get past procedural blocks, the filibuster threshold. So you absolutely needed some compromise, some bipartisan buy-in. The fact that they put forward these two, maximalist bills just shows how dug in everyone was. Okay, let's look at the Democratic plan first. It was pretty ambitious. They were going for everything. It would fund the government, yes, but also keep those ACA subsidies and reverse the Medicaid cuts and even restore money for foreign aid and public broadcasting. It feels like they were using the shutdown threat as leverage to win policy battles they couldn't win otherwise. And the Republican plan was clearly set up as a contrast politically. It only extended funding through November 21st, very short term, plus only very limited extra spending. Now, why November 21st? That's a really short leash. It forces everyone back to the negotiating table right before the big Thanksgiving break. That really cranks up the pressure, doesn't it? Settle this before the holidays really kick in. So you had one side packing the bill with policy, the other trying a short-term fix at maybe the most inconvenient time possible. You can see why it all just collapsed. And since neither of those plans could get the 60 votes needed, the only thing that is certain is the cost. If we link this legislative failure to what happens next, well, this gridlock isn't just talk. It costs the U.S. economy real money right away and messes up basic government functions.
Yeah, the scale is huge. And we don't have to guess about it. The sources point to specific data from the Congressional Budget Office, the CBO. They're the nonpartisan group that scores these things for Congress. So the CBO figured a shutdown like this would mean about 750,000 federal workers getting furloughed each day. Each day. And it's important for you to understand, furlough means they're put on temporary unpaid leave. The paychecks just stop. Congress might vote later to give them back pay, but in the moment, they're not getting paid. And the economic hit is immediate. It's sharp. The estimate was a daily wage loss of around $400 million, just pulled out of the economy every single day the government's shut.
Wow. But it goes beyond just the furloughed workers, doesn't it? The economic numbers are big, but the human cost is maybe felt more in just the disruption to normal services. What stands out to you, the listener, is probably how suddenly things just stop working.
Exactly. We've seen this in past shutdowns. Things like food safety inspections. They slow way down. That's a serious public health risk, right?
Mm-hmm. And passport processing gets disrupted. Think canceled trips, ruined plans for lots of people.
And probably the most visible thing, natural parks, monuments. They just shut their gates instantly. Those are the kinds of impacts average people feel right away.
And then there are the less obvious costs, too. Beyond the lost wages and canceled trips, just the instability itself kind of puts a chill on the economy. When businesses can't rely on the government to process permits or fulfill contracts, well, that impacts confidence, investment decisions, market stability. It ripples out.
Which brings up a really important point. Okay, we know the specific fight was over ACA subsidies, but how much did the really charged political atmosphere contribute to the deadlock? The sources suggest that political volatility wasn't just there, it was maybe deliberately added to the mix, making that 60-vote compromise way, way harder to reach. You see it in some of the administration's comments. For example, President Trump apparently suggested using the shutdown to make permanent cuts to the federal workforce. That's a pretty explosive thing to say.
Yeah.
Agency officials quickly walked that back, saying mass layoffs weren't actually legal that way. But just saying it, that creates huge anxiety, huge hostility among federal workers. It makes the whole thing feel much more adversarial, you know?
Yeah.
Right. And it wasn't just rhetoric. Even government departments seem to be jumping into the partisan fight. The Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, got a lot of criticism because they posted this statement publicly, blaming the radical left for the shutdown.
Yeah, when you have official government departments issuing press releases that sound like campaign attacks, that signals a deeper issue, doesn't it? It suggests the very institutions that are supposed to just carry out the law are getting politicized. And that just kills the trust you need for any kind of bipartisan deal.
And it seems like the focus shifted almost completely from policy arguments to, well, personal attacks, just trying to rally the base instead of finding common ground. The sources mentioned President Trump sharing a doctored video making fun of Democratic leaders Schumer and Jeffries. Democrats called it racist, inflammatory.
And then, in what feels like a classic tit-for-tat move, Representative Jeffries hit back by bringing up Trump's past connections to Jeffrey Epstein. This kind of back and forth trading personal insults, it's mentioned right there in the source material, it just poisons the well completely. It's hard enough getting someone from the other party to vote for your complex spending bill, right?
Yeah.
It becomes almost impossible when you're also publicly attacking each other like that.
So putting this into perspective, is this level of conflict, this brinkmanship over funding, is this just how things work now? Or is this moment particularly bad?
Well, it helps to look at the recent past. This potential shutdown would be the first since 2018. And that one was really damaging. It lasted 34 days, a record. The estimated cost of the U.S. economy back then, around $3 billion. So that $3 billion gives us a pretty recent, pretty concrete idea of the kind of financial damage these long shutdowns can do.
And when you ask the public who's responsible for that kind of damage, the blame doesn't seem to be split evenly. We saw recent polling data from Morning Consult just this week actually tracking public opinion on this. And according to that poll, 45% of voters said they'd blame Republicans if a shutdown happened.
Compared to 32% who said they blame Democrats.
Yeah.
That difference is interesting, isn't it? Both sides are obviously involved in the fight, but it seems the public might see the party pushing for the change, or in this case, pushing for a clean bill while those big subsidies expire, as more responsible for triggering the closure.
Okay, so let's try to pull this all together. What we've seen is a crisis sparked by a very specific, very high-stakes fight over expiring ACA subsidies, something affecting potentially millions of people's health and finances. This deadlock comes with a huge quantifiable economic cost, maybe $400 million a day just in lost wages.
And all of this is happening in this incredibly tense political climate where actual policy debate often gets lost amid personal attacks and political gamesmanship. The stakes feel incredibly high. You look at that $3 billion cost from the last big shutdown in 2018. You look at the $400 million daily hit this one could inflict.
It really leaves us with a final thought for you, the listener, to think about. We know the economic cost of gridlock is massive. We can put numbers on it. But how does the policy value the value of extending those ACA subsidies, keeping people insured, how does that weigh against the staggering economic damage of the shutdown needed to potentially achieve it? Which cost, ultimately, do you think the American public finds harder to accept, the economic disruption or the risk to public health coverage? And how does that calculation drive what politicians decide to do?